Hello, my loves. Welcome to this episode on a topic that, again, feels so important that we need to speak out loud about. It's something that happens to so many high achieving women who are mums. And it happens in so many homes across the country, across the world. No matter what industry these women are working in, whatever the family dynamic is. And that is that experience that being a mum is tough. Being a mum is hard at times. It can be the most wonderful, most rewarding, most longed for experience. But as high achieving women, often when we find it hard, tough, we have days where we're exhausted and depleted and we don't get to show up as a mum that we want to, that actually we are so harsh on ourselves. We are so judgmental. We are so critical. We say things to ourselves about that experience that we would never say to anyone else. And here's what I tell my clients when this comes into our group coaching calls and in our conversations. Because in this space, women feel able to be completely open and completely honest about what it's like to be living their life right now. And so many of them are experiencing difficulty as being a mum. And they find that deeply painful. They worry about it. They think about it. It keeps them up at night. They worry that they're bad mums. They think that they're failing. And actually, because they care so much, because it means so much to them, that's why they're there doing that work. Because so often, being a mum and finding being a mum hard and the experience of it being not quite what you expected and you showing up as a mum that you didn't really think you would be, that actually so often that's the catalyst, that's the trigger, that's the moment that so many women step forward and say, you know what, I want change. I want to do things differently because I don't want to be the snappy mum, the irritable mum, the shouty mum. Yes, life is difficult. Yes, being a mum can be really tricky. There can be certain seasons that are particularly challenging for sure. Now, I have clients who have kids at all different ages. So that applies probably across the board to all the different ages, but for different families, different dynamics, different contexts, sometimes different ages land a little bit more trickiness. And so many of the women that I work with have actually expressed that when I've asked them, what was the moment that you realized now is the time to do this work? What was it that led you to reaching out? And so often it's because of a moment that they showed up as a mum, the type of mum that they thought they wouldn't be. They said things that they didn't mean. They shouted in a way they didn't want to. They rushed through yet another bedtime just to get back to laptop. Or maybe for some of them actually who have kids who are a bit older, their kids have expressed, Mummy, are you okay? Mummy, I'm worried about you. These are real, genuine things that some of my clients' kids have spoken to them and said to them. And this is a moment. It's a moment of coming to, of realizing this isn't how I want to be. This isn't how I want to be showing up. Yeah, being a mum is tough. No doubt. Being a high achieving mum, a working mum is tough. You're spinning so many plates. You've got all the balls up in the air. And I normally mix those two analogies up. So I've done well there. There is a limitless number of things that you need to do. The load at work is high. The load at home is high. You so often by the end of the day at work are depleted, exhausted. You feel like you've got nothing left to give. It feels like work gets the best of you and home gets, well, what's left. And so often that's actually not very much. And so the women that I work with, they care so deeply. They want to be the best version of a mum that they can be. And they are really aware that, the things we see on Instagram, like I mentioned in the last episode, that our brains can do the comparison. And that there's this idea, this kind of paramour of perfectionism as a mum. And actually, they just want presence. They want connection. This isn't about having the Instagram perfect family and life, although sometimes our minds can be like, oh, can we do that too? But this is about being the mum, maybe even being the partner that you want to be, showing up in a way that honors who you actually truly are. Not about being the perfect mum, not always having to be the fun mum or the baking mum or the crafting mum. a conversation I've had with several of my clients in the group is about, we actually get to choose what kind of mum we want to be. Maybe we're the going into nature mum. Maybe we're going to the cinema mum. Maybe we're the baking, but not the crafting kind of mum. Or maybe it's realizing that we can do those things, but we don't want to have to be able to do them all the time because there's still lots of other things that need doing in life. And actually, when you feel in that resource place, you can navigate through that. That judgment just starts to melt away that you actually know at that time, it's okay actually if your kid has some time playing with some friends or maybe having a bit of time playing whatever little game that they like by themselves. Or maybe, dare I even say it, a little bit of screen time. Obviously, moderation is key here, and we need to be sure what our kids are watching on screens. There's been so much documented. There's been some incredible documentaries in the last year or so about the impact of what kids see on screens, of course, and I do not speak this lightly. But we're talking about responsible, loving parents here who obviously would be very careful about what their kids are consuming on screens and where they're doing it and how they're doing it. And so actually, when we think about being a mum and how it shows up for us in our lives as high achievers, going through burnout and overwhelm and the perfect storm raging through our lives, one of the things that is actually calling to us that we are there and we are in that perfect storm is our relationship with motherhood. Maybe more so than our relationship with our kids, because so often the women that I work with, they feel like they're failing. They feel like they're doing a bad job, and they're not. They're maybe just not hitting this incredibly high standard and ideal that was fed to us, propagated by social media. This kind of propaganda that's spread about what motherhood, perfect motherhood should look like. Actually, these are women who care and they love and they're devoted to their families and their children. It's just actually the school run, the bedtime. Sometimes those are the flashpoints. And in those moments, something shows up that they didn't even know existed within them before. Maybe they had kids. It's that idea of overwhelm, a flashpoint, that expression of something that we can see online. And I'm really glad it's been talked about, which is mum rage. This visceral anger coming to the surface, this visceral experience of your body being activated by sheer exhaustion, sheer depletion, overload. And actually really often for women, it's mums, your high achievers who poured out all day long, overstimulation. Overstimulation of noise, of touch, of need, of someone always needing them. Someone always saying their name. And in that moment, this experience of mum rage, and when I say mum rage, this is obviously a context where things come out as irritable and snappy. That's the expression we're talking about here. There may be a conversation about other things that can show up in mum rage, and that's a place for another time and another space. But I'm talking about women who are overwhelmed and their flashpoint comes out when they snap and they shout and they're frustrated, they're fed up, to their children and in front of their children. And what comes afterwards is guilt and shame and judgment. And for these women in that moment, it proves to them in that moment of vulnerability that they are failing, that voice in their head is right. And so they do more. They try harder, they press on. And it becomes this vicious cycle. It's part of the perfect storm, isn't it? That incredible high need and demand coming from others. And when you are completely depleted, exhausted, wrung out, empty, some women I work with describes themselves as a hollowed out husk by the end of the day. No wonder when your needs have been so unmet that actually in that moment, it feels like you've got nothing left to give. And it comes out in a way that you don't want, in a way that does not express who you are, what you value, and who you want to be. And it's the people you love most in the world, isn't it? That always seem to get the raw end of the deal. Your family, the people that you love, partners, people closest to us, because it feels at that point, the lid just blows off, right? It's the people we feel closest to, safest to. And for so many women, this is the reason that they come and do this work. There are many other reasons, of course. And actually, maybe that's a topic for another podcast episode at another time. There are so many reasons to come and do this work because everyone's story is unique and personal. But this one has been coming up a lot recently. This has been coming up a lot in conversations, in the groups, in the group calls, in the group space, and in conversations that I have with women who are exploring doing this work. This is where that moment is where I get to choose, right? What do I do now? I could keep going, but this same thing keeps on happening. Or I could see what else there is available. I could explore, be curious about what it's like to live life differently. Because everything I'm doing right up until now, the doing more, the pushing on, the self-blame and criticism and the judgment and the guilt, it's not actually making it any better. These women have realised that this overwhelm, this flashpoint, this mum rage, the way I've described it in this episode, is actually telling them something. It's actually a sign. It's a sign that something needs to change. It's a sign that actually now is the moment. This has happened again, despite me trying my best for it not to, despite me digging in and trying to be the perfect mum, trying to live up to that ideal. This is information. And that's what I teach in this space. It's about information, that this overwhelm, that this expression through irritability and snapping and being shy to mum isn't a validation that actually you're doing this all wrong. It's actually information that you need something, that you really need something, that your needs need to be met, that you need a space that you can come and decompress and vent as you need to, a space that you can come and be heard and understood, a space where you can make sense of the perfect storm in your life. You can see it for what it is. One of the things that I teach is that when you can see the perfect storm for what it is, see the parts clicking together like a jigsaw, well, then actually you can do something very powerful. Because when you see the perfect storm, you can't unsee it. That's what I love about the perfect storm. And the perfect storm is an idea that I created to really help women understand why these moments, why these flashpoints happen, why they happen so often. Also, it seems to be because of the small thing. It's the proverbial straw and the camel's back. But here's the thing, like I said, when you see the perfect storm, you can't unsee it. That is so true. But actually, you can do something else as well. You can reverse engineer it. If we can see the many parts for what they are, if we can paint the picture and see it clearly, I invite women to stand back out with me, step into that seat of observing, looking back in on their lives, being curious, being compassionate from that point, seeing the wood for the trees. Then the path starts to create itself, because if we can see the many parts, the jigsaw pieces that click together to create this inevitable path of flashpoint, of snapping, of irritability, of shouting, of showing up in a way that you really don't want to, that actually we can reverse engineer it with purpose and intention, with deliberate choices and actions, decisions, through having support, through having compassion, through having community and realizing, like I said in the last episode, it's not just you. It's not just you. That actually this is tough. You know, as high achieving women, we have been so used to pushing on, pressing on. You know, I've spoken about that before. It's actually part of what's contributed to us feeling this way, overwhelmed and burnt out and keeping that pattern on repeat. But it has also contributed partly to our success as well. You know, we can look back and see how it did help us at times. But actually, when we apply that same principle to our healing and recovery from overwhelm and burnout, it doesn't actually work. And it also doesn't work when we apply it to motherhood as well. Because actually, the more we do, the more we try, it doesn't work. Being a mum is the most grounding, leveling experience of your life. Because as high achieving women, we are used to problem solving, used to getting things done, used to delegating and having a team, having a say, being the one to make the decisions. And then things happen, hopefully. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Depending on the industry, depending on the workforce. But largely, when everything goes well, things happen. Wow. That doesn't happen as a mum, does it? That doesn't happen because we're dealing with tiny little humans here, and maybe teenage humans here. And they've got their own mind. They've got their own emotions. They've got their own thoughts. They are becoming this little person. And it doesn't work. It doesn't land. And so all of a sudden, we feel without skills, without strategy, without the manual. The manual never got delivered in the post, right? When they came along, where was the manual? I often find with kids, now I'm not a parenting expert by any means, but my own experience of being a mum is that you kind of catch up, you kind of figure it all out, and then they jump on ahead. And so we're always playing catch up. And that's so unfamiliar to us, isn't it? We're so used to getting the job done, to hopefully ticking some of the boxes and having some sense of job well done, satisfied, got vaguely through the to-do list, maybe hit the deadline. But this is so different. This is ongoing, isn't it? It really is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So all those things we're used to doing, they don't work here. They don't land here. And we need to see that. We need to be open and honest and frank about that. Because there are other ways to make this work. There are other ways for this to feel good so that we get to show up and have that beautiful life that we feel so called to, where we get to be the mom, the parent, the partner that we want to be. And it comes through seeing the perfect storm and reverse engineering it with support, with connection, with community. But again, this is a topic we need to be talking about. Yeah, this is happening in so many different lives and so many different homes. This experience of finding it tough, finding it hard. And again, when we start to blow the lid off this, we know that actually we are not in this by ourselves. There are so many people that do get this. There's so many people experiencing the same as us. And there's actually something that we can do where we get to be that favorite version of us. We get to have that success that works for us, for our families, for our lives, our purpose. So we can have those beautiful moments at home. So it can fit into a life that's busy and at times chaotic, right? There's so many things to do. It's about having a life that's fit for purpose. It's about having a life that works for you in the season that you are in. And so, my love, if you are noticing that information, that sign on the side of the road, those moments where the irritability, the snapping, the shouting just seems to erupt almost out of nowhere, it seems, doesn't it? That is a sign, my love, that change is needed in your life, that you deserve that change to happen so that you don't have to live that cycle of being snappy mum, shouty mum, and then being riddled with that guilt. And then it plays on repeat again. That actually there is something you can do about it. And the fact that you are here, the fact that you are listening in, exploring your options is such a sign of how much you want to be the mum you want to be. How devoted you are as a mum, as a partner. And how actually you so fully deserve all of those things that you long for. The moments of presence and connection, joy. Because life is made up of those little moments, isn't it? That's what life is all about. And so stick around, listen in. You are so welcome here. And if you want to explore this work a little bit more, have a look at the show notes down below about how you can follow along on Instagram, how you can sign up for a little freebie about the 5 ways to be overwhelmed. And you can also reach out, email me. I love hearing from you guys. I love hearing your stories. Tell me what landed for you. Tell me what comes up for you, knowing you are in the right place. I will talk to you very, very soon, my love.